What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fantasy Files podcast, the podcast that takes up hours that you will never, ever get back. We are your co-hosts, Spencer and Gabe, and today we're joined by our friend Sam, who's been on for a few episodes. You were on for the Night Angel episode, right? And
multiple Night Angel episodes, I think.
Yeah. Right,
2 or 3.
Yeah, at least, yeah, because you did the original trilogy with us, and then Night Angel Nemesis, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so then you also came on for the Emberblade and its sequel, right? The Shadow Casket or whatever. See, you've been on a bunch, and you're one of our favorite people to have on. You've been
I love coming on. I get to nerd out.
Yeah. But today you're here to talk about Empire of the Damned, the second book in the Empire of the Vampire series by Jay Kristoff, who is the author of the Nevernight trilogy, if anyone's read that. But we just did Empire of the Vampire last week, and we loved it so much. We were like, we got to do Empire of the Damned. It just came out. It's going to be a very hot topic in the YouTube space. Probably it's a very big release. You only
just read the first book. You only just read it.
Yeah.
I
did.
Yeah. More than a year, actually. I was dying for this.
I read the first book. Probably like. Oh man, it was before I moved to the new place, so it was probably like a couple of years ago that I read it, and I loved it, and I tried getting Gabe to read it, but it was one of those series, and we've had multiple instances of this.
Yeah, it's a recurring event.
Where I'm like, you gotta read this. He tries it and doesn't like it, and I'm like, okay, whatever.
And then he waits like a year, and then he's like, all right, try it again just for me. And then I read it, and I'm like, okay, I love this.
Yeah. Same thing happened with
Gentleman Bastard series.
Gentleman Bastards. That was the big one.
Yeah, that was
that. Like I tried to get him to read it for so long, and it just like was not working out.
That's my next read, by the way. I'm restarting that.
Yes, dude, definitely. I want to reread those as well. So he read that and ended up loving it. And then there's a clip that I have to clip this out of the live video that we did because it was the best reaction, the best reveal. So Sam, you were going to come on a little while ago for Will of the Many. And Gabe was going to skip out on that episode because he was like, I didn't like it.
You didn't like it.
And I was like, that's fair. Like, if it's not your thing, like, okay. Like,
there's not much you can say to that, you know? If I didn't have the book, that's you know, it's all good. People have different tastes.
Yeah, for sure. But I was definitely bummed because I think it's my favorite book of the year.
I loved it.
Yes.
I loved it so much. I have so many thoughts. I'm so upset that like the events that happened that I couldn't come on because I loved that book so much.
Yeah, I mean, let's plan another time to do it because I want to talk about that book so bad.
Yeah, I am absolutely down because I don't know anyone else who has read it. So
right, yeah, it's so good and like, so Gabe was saying like, oh yeah, I didn't enjoy it or whatever, and I was bummed. And weeks go by. It's probably like at least 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And we're doing our big like 100th episode live event.
5-hour, 6-hour live stream.
Yeah. And somewhere in that first hour of the episode, Gabe's like, well, we were talking about like what we've been reading, and he's like, I just finished Will of the Many, and I loved it. And I lost it. I was so happy. I'm like,
God, that's so funny.
I didn't say anything to him. I didn't tell him a word about it. Last he heard, I DNF'd it and I didn't like it. Yeah, I went back and reread it and loved it.
Oh,
that's
dude,
funny.
Yeah,
I had a book like that once where I didn't like it the first time, but I finished it. I can't remember.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time, man. I read a book and I'm like, okay, I don't know if I like this, and then 2 months later I read it. I'm like, why didn't I like this the first time?
It's gonna bother me now, but I can't. I remember it was a book though that my problem with it was the first time I read it, the whole time I was worried people were gonna die. So when I went and read it the second time, and I knew like, okay, this person's gonna make it, they're gonna get through this, I could read it without the anxiety, and I finally appreciated the story. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah,
I love that you ended up loving it though. That's great. I really loved that book, and it was a little slow at the beginning. I was like, where is this going? But then it was just boom, 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 boom. So highly recommend.
Yeah. There's a certain point in that book where it just like takes off.
Yes.
And there's like, I don't want to like spoil anything for anybody, but there's an adoption that happens early on in the book, and I would say from that moment on, it's very not like an action-packed thrill ride, but it's very intriguing.
It's thrilling. It is thrilling, though, for sure.
Yeah, it is. Definitely. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about Empire of the Damned. And I want to let our viewers know that if you would like to reach out to us, you can do so on Twitter and Discord. Those are always the best places to talk to us, or you can just leave a comment on this YouTube video. We love talking to you guys down there. And if you'd like to support us, we have a Patreon, which Sam is actually on, and and you can get exclusive content over there. And what we're going to start doing actually is, now that we're using StreamYard full time, we're going to be sending these live over to Patreon, so that if you're backing us at the $6 tier and above, you can see every episode as it's recorded, completely unedited, and then YouTube later will see the fully edited, the fully edited version, and that just gives our patrons a way to see our content sometimes like a month early. Like sometimes it's about a month until we get these episodes out.
They'll have a lot of good laughs too. There's a lot of stuff that happens that's edited out that I think is pretty funny.
Right, 100%. Yeah. So, and then if you back us at the $3 tier and above, you get exclusive content. We call it Fantasy Files After Dark, and it's basically just me and Gabe, or sometimes Mick or Chris joins us, and we're just kind of dicking around and having fun. You can also support us by subscribing here on YouTube. Right now we are having a big push to get more subscribers in. We're really, really close to 1,000, so if you're watching us for the first time, we would really appreciate hitting that subscribe button. But that's about it for housekeeping. I will say that we'll do a little spoiler-free section as we talk about Empire of the Damned. It'll just be a quick, like, 10-15 minute section, and then we're going to go right into spoilers, but we'll give you fair warning before we do. Real quick, how we usually start our episodes is talking about what we've been reading or watching lately, and I'm going to limit this one. I'm usually the one that talks too much. I'm gonna try to limit this one to a minute each. So if all of us can talk about what we've been reading or watching in a minute, that would be awesome. So let's start with Sam. Looks like she's looking at her bookshelf.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what I read. Oh, I know what I read. Okay, I now remember. I read Mask of Mirrors. It's the series. I think it's like The Rose and the Rook, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
The Rose and the Rook, yeah. I read the first and second book. I have the third. I haven't gotten into it yet. I needed a little break. They're very complex books in the sense that there is a lot you have to remember as you're reading them. You have to remember a lot of different people's information and people pretending to be other people, but other people don't know. And like when they're interacting with them, they have to remember like what that person knows in this persona versus it's very confusing, but I did enjoy it. But I needed a break before the third book. I couldn't really jump into that. And
do you feel like the gap between books, are you going to forget a lot of those little minute things?
I'm like really hoping not, but honestly, with like the speed that I read, it's very likely that I'm gonna forget. But those books actually have a really fun glossary in them where you can go and like look and see like certain things. So that does
help. Every book have that?
Yeah,
right?
I
all need it.
I was thinking of that when I started Empire of the Damned, because the beginning of the physical book has each character and like a little synopsis on them.
Yeah, we don't get same with the audio. Yeah, we got it.
Actually?
Yeah, matter of fact, you
you're talking about like
me and you're like, there's like a recap.
Okay, recap, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which is better than nothing, but I had reread it before I started this because I didn't want to forget anything. And then when I started this, I was like, oh, I enjoyed the reread, but I guess I didn't really need to because there was like a whole retelling right in the beginning. But
yeah,
I thought you meant like there was like a like a page where it says your character name and the stuff that they do, and then the next character, and then the next.
That's what ours was. Yeah.
But hers is on paper. She can flip back to it. You know?
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's just in the beginning instead of the end. And so it's like each person's name and like the little thing about them. But I love a glossary. Give me all the glossaries.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably one of my most recent reads, other than Crescent City, which I know you guys didn't read.
Right. Yeah. That's cool. I've had that on my wish list for a while, and I've been wondering if it would be something that I would enjoy.
It was good, but if you still haven't read City of Brass, I need you to read that first.
There you go.
I don't even remember this. Was this something you recommended me?
Oh yes, I blew through that series so fast I could not put it down. It's so good. I need you to read it.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Yep, done. That's your call to arms right there, dude.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Gabe, what have you been? I mean, we've been reading Empire of the Vampire. So have you been watching anything?
Yeah. Reading's been tough lately. It's just I'm barely finishing the books on time for the podcast. I finished Empire of the Damned 20 minutes before 3.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and it was the same last week.
Yeah.
I can't listen at work anymore, at least for a little while. So it's so hard to miss my 8 hours of listening every day. Anyways, so been reading that. One thing I've been watching. So I've been playing a game that I think you'll like. I'll talk about what I'm watching first. I've been watching Yellowstone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's really good. Typical cowboy, Montana stuff, but the storyline's awesome. A lot of really cool characters. And then I kind of went for it, and you're probably gonna bitch at me for this, but I went for it and I got Dragon's Dogma 2.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so I've been playing it. I got like 15 hours in. The first probably like 4 or 5 hours I wasn't sure, but once I got a little more out there, I was like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
The combat's weird, spells are weird, but like once you like figure out the way to do it, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I've been wanting to play that. I've just been waiting for some patches because I think the PC port is people are kind of upset about it. So I'm gonna wait for a patch or two, but I'm definitely gonna get it because it looks amazing.
It's very Final Fantasy, it's Capcom, right? Like that's kind of
as in Final Fantasy, as in like the way.
Remember when you came over and we played? No, just playing Final Fantasy. You remember playing it for a little while? It's like very similar in the way you play it. Like the movement, the combat. That's the way that spells are mapped, all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
I think it's probably just their kind of signature. It's the way they do things.
Right. Okay. Cool. Yeah, so same thing. I've been reading Empire of the Vampire and Empire of the Damned. I wasn't really. I think the only other thing we read before that was Ghost Story, and that was also for the podcast. But what I've been watching, Gabe, and I'm curious if you've seen this show, Sam.
Okay.
Is I rewatched all of Sex Education on Netflix.
Yes, I watched all of them. Yeah.
Dude, I just started the first episode of I just finished the first episode of season 4.
Oh, so you're not done yet.
I'm not done yet.
Oh, okay. Woo.
And I'm like, exactly. I'm like, oh my god, that first episode, I was not expecting it to get so crazy. and I don't know if I like the new school that they're at. But my God, I love this show so much. Like I love that show so much.
Yeah.
And just like all of the characters and just the way like their character arcs are so well written, and the buddiness of them all of their banter with each other, I absolutely love them. It was interesting to see that there's a lot of characters or a lot of actors in season 4 or from the first 3 seasons that don't return in season 4. Yeah. Like Ruby's friends, like Anwar and Melody or whatever her name is. The guy that was dating Eric is not in the show anymore, or like before Adam, the guy that was dating him before Adam. Isn't in the show, and I thought Adam and that guy were gonna get together, and so I was kind of like, I was expecting to see him in season 4, but so far he's gone as well. And then like Lily and Phoebe, or the 2 girls that were dating each other, I can't remember their names either. But yeah, it's crazy to see so many actors just kind of missing from season 4. So it's a bit of a bummer, but I think Scrubs did the same thing in its later seasons too. There was just a lot of people that couldn't return. So
you're only on episode 1 though.
Yeah.
I promise you'll be smiling through the whole thing.
Dude, I am so excited. I'm like, oh, there was so much stuff with like Maeve and Otis in that first episode where I'm like, yes, Maeve is still in the show, because I thought they were getting rid of Maeve.
Oh, no.
And so when I saw her come back for episode 1, I was like, thank God they have her here still. But anyways, I love this show. I'm so excited to wrap up season 4, and I've been putting it off for a long time because it's been really bittersweet. It's been like, I've watched this show for like so many years now. And now it's the final season, and I don't want it to end. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, let's talk about Empire of the Damned. We're gonna go over some spoiler-free thoughts. How do you guys think that this kind of compares to the first book, especially because all 3 of us just read the first book and then went directly into the second? Do you feel like it bridged the gap pretty well?
Yeah, I would say that it did. I think the first book I struggle with this big time, and I think it's just something due to the way that I take in information, right? And it was I wanted to reread book 1 because I always feel like there's a lot of movement in the POV, right?
Yeah.
And so that it's just hard for me to grasp. And so this book I feel like does that even more with kind of jumping from one, at least towards the end.
Yes.
Because all of a sudden, like, he's talking, and then there's no switch. All of a sudden, now they're back in the, with the marquee. And it was like, there's nothing, unless you pay attention, there's nothing that will tell you until you realize that they're back in that underground place. Right. And so that was kind of like, it's not frustrating because it's a great book, but it's definitely something I want to read again slower with less of a time limit. Just take my time, go at 1.2 times speed if I need to, right? Just go slow and soak it all in. But other than that, I mean, I think I'm a little biased in the fact that I've always just liked, kind of the second book in a series, right? It's just something, because all the stuff that happens in the first, you're seeing either the culmination or part of the culmination of what it's going to be towards, the end of the series, right?
Right.
And so that was really cool to kind of see stuff unfold. But I was happy with him, man. I was really, really pleased with everything he does, and I do want to say really quick too. Actually, never mind. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. It's gonna come up.
Sam's spoiler-free thoughts.
I agree with Gabe where I think, sorry, my garage door is opening and it just threw my whole
You're good.
Oh, no, the second book in a series where I have found with any really good series that I have fallen in love with over time, I always on a reread end up starting on the second book, because the first in a way in any really good series almost is like a prequel. It just needs to set the base of the story for you. So once you get to book 2, because now after reading
when the story starts.
Yes. after we all reread book 1 and just read book 2, it's like, wow, like it'll be hard to do a reread ever again of book 1 with how slow it feels in comparison now to reading book 2, because we had so many unanswered questions in book 1 at the end, and now sure there's unanswered questions, but we have so much more other information we didn't have before. So I liked the pace of it. I liked that it switches up the point of view. It's not just Gabriel's point of view anymore. I liked that. Yeah, I thought it was good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that there's certainly exceptions, but I think that I typically like the first book in a series because it's like the original, like the beginning, like Frodo and Sam walking out of the Shire. I love that moment. So yeah, I think I typically tend to gravitate more towards the first book in a series, but with this one, I really, really liked the second book. Like I want to say I liked it more than the first one, but they're very different. I felt like they're the same in that you're getting Gabriel sitting down and telling you his story, telling someone else his story, and then you get another POV of someone else in the castle who's telling their side of the story. And I thought that was really interesting that we're getting two different people or someone else telling the story just like Gabriel is doing, but just from their perspective. And I thought that put a really cool twist on it. And I think that I liked that more than the different timelines. Like in the previous book, we got Gabe when he was like 13 or whatever, and then then we also got like his 32-year-old timeline and then the present day timeline. And I think it was easier for the narrative change to have two characters doing different perspectives, but they're on the same timeline.
I like that better. Yeah, that it was just a straight timeline this time instead of the hopping around. Because in the first book, on the reread, I struggled with that because like when it stopped, it was like, no, I want to continue with that storyline. Even though I know what you're giving me next, I'm going to feel the same when it ends. But I liked that this one was a straight line. And I liked also, just like you, where you did get another point of view. And you know how they always say there's like three sides to every situation, your side, my side, and the truth. It had me thinking about that a lot through the second book, where the first book, because I didn't even stop to think like, oh well, this is his memory, how
truthful. Exactly.
It really. So it was really great to have another viewpoint who they were in the same situation, and you could compare how each of them saw it and kind of draw your own conclusion then from the situation.
Right. Did you find that when you're listening to Gabriel's story and then it stops and it goes to the other character who's sharing their story, did you have that same reaction where it's like, oh no, I wanted to keep going with this one?
I did.
Yeah.
At certain parts of the book, at some parts it was like, okay, this is like the logical shift to see the other point of view, but there were parts where it was like, man, like
right.
I think my thing was just like, I was like, I just want Gabriel back. Like where did he go? So it took me a while to learn to enjoy the other POV. Once I did, it was awesome. But at first, I was like, "Oh, just bring me back to my guy here."
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But I enjoyed that the second book we actually finally got to see like life with like vampires, like
yes,
the bad and the ugly and all of that. I really appreciated getting that viewpoint. That was really great.
Yeah, we definitely get to see more of their world, and how their like politics work, and just everything that goes on behind the scenes, at least in this one clan. And so that was really, really cool. I liked that a lot. But yeah, I would say the first time that the POV shift happened, I was kind of like, dang it, and then every time after that, I like you said, I felt like it was the logical thing. But the first time it happens, it's definitely like no, wait.
Yeah.
Like,
I was excited because of who they were going to get the viewpoint from. I was like, oh shit, like what are they gonna spill?
Yeah.
What do
right.
they have to tell?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I actually think that was probably the one time I was the most excited because I was like, oh, this is new. This is the beginning
of
the story. And so that was, for me at least, probably the one time I was actually the most excited about
it. The one thing that I definitely did not like about that, and I got used to it, but for the audiobook, they changed to a new narrator.
Female
it's not
narrator.
The same guy.
Yeah.
Oh, and you know what? I think I'd appreciate
that.
No,
it was great. Like, it was great after I knew what was going on. Like, once I was normalized to, okay, different POV. This is, so and so, and she is talking. I was like, okay, this works great.
Right.
Did you guys, either of you, ever read the book physically, like the physical copy?
I did not. No.
No. Sweet, have you ever looked up the photo? I have the photo one where there's drawings every 20, 30 pages. Did you look up to see what they were?
Yeah, so I have.
You have them. You just didn't.
Right. Yeah. I have the physical books, and that's actually a funny story I'll get into in a second here. But real quick, I just want to say on the narrator, the reason that I hate switching narrators like this is because you listen to one guy and he has a very specific voice for Dior and for Gabriel and all this stuff. You switch to the other guy and someone else is, or say girl. Dior is speaking.
And the other thing is a female narrator.
Right.
And that's what was hard for me, because how is a female, unless she's very talented, is going to do Gabriel the way that Gabriel was done.
Right.
And you're so used to hearing the male narrator
exactly.
one way that now you're oh wait, it's
she's that's not Gabriel. That does not sound like Gabriel. You're trying right now.
Yeah. I have that issue with some audiobooks where I don't like the way that the accents can be thrown in for some of the characters they're doing, but I can't imagine listening to one narrator do it one way and then somebody else telling different. That would mess with my brain too much.
It was kind of annoying, especially at the beginning of a book. It'll use a lot of whoever said kind of tags, like Dior said or Gabe said, but by the time you get far enough in a book, it expects you to know who's in a certain scene. So a lot of the times there aren't those tags, and so when you change the narrator and they're using a completely different voice for Dior or something, it's wait, who is that? Who was just talking? And so that was annoying. But real quick, I'll say before we go into spoilers, so I got Empire of the Vampire at a Black Friday thing a few years ago, maybe two years ago, whenever it first came out, and it's signed, and it's a special Barnes and Noble edition and whatnot. And so when Empire of the Damned came out, I was okay, well, I gotta get the special edition and get it signed so that they all match and everything. And then it creeped up on me, and I was oh wait, it came out yesterday. I totally missed the opportunity to order a signed version. And so I went to my local Barnes and Nobles. I'm do you guys have a Barnes & Noble edition? And they're yes, we do. And so I went down there and went to go get it, but it's not signed. And they're oh yeah, not every Barnes & Noble edition is signed. And I was
mine's Barnes & Noble, it's not signed.
Yeah. And I was dude, what am I gonna do? I have to have the signed version so that it matches with the first one. And so I went online and I'm trying to find a signed edition, and they're all ready, because the book's been out for 2 days. They're all $200, $300, $400 for a signed version. And I'm dude, what am I gonna do? And I just happenstance barely came across Powell's bookstore in Oregon, the big bookstore. I came across their website, and they had been back ordered or something. They hadn't gotten their signed copies yet, so they still had the pre-order option on there. And I was oh my god. And so they were 2 days out from getting their shipment, so I pre-ordered that right away, and I got my signed edition.
Nice.
I'm so stoked.
Wow, nice.
Just because of a technicality. Oh, dude.
I don't think I have any signed books.
Oh, really?
I know I don't.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. I think Spencer gave me one.
You have a Jade Legacy.
Jade Legacy, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually just recently bought the first book.
Oh, awesome.
Okay.
Should I read it? Okay.
Yes,
of
absolutely.
course. Yes.
You should read
Okay.
it.
That
Yeah,
was
they're
actually
amazing.
funny you say that because now that I finished Empire of the Damned, that was actually the book I was going to start
so
tonight.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
You will love it.
One of my
love
favorite
it.
books of all time. Our
Awesome.
favorite
All right,
series.
You just made
Yeah.
it easy for me. All right, that's definitely it then.
Awesome.
Yeah. If you if you liked the if you liked the sex scenes in the Empire of the Vampire books, then the Greenbone Saga also has very good sex scenes.
It's not all that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good content in there.
I have very varied tastes when it comes to fantasy, and while I do love my hardcore high fantasy, I read a lot of fantasy smut as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So does my fiance. It's actually all she reads. In fact,
so
you want
her and
us-
I should
Yes.
get in contact.
yeah,
because then we
oh,
can talk
literally,
about
that's the only
terrible
genre that
ones.
she enjoys is fantasy stuff.
Yeah,
so.
she's
Oh,
reading
so
A Court
I
of
could name all of, like,
Thorns and Roses,
books
right?
she-
Yeah, Court of
should
Thorns
know.
and Roses. I can't remember which. I know she's finished the first, and then maybe the.
Oh, I've read every book by that author.
Yeah.
Everyone. She's written all 3 series, each one like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
It's my like comfort go-to when I don't want to like really need to use my brain.
And
But
you want us
comforting.
to read Fourth Wing, right?
Because
Which is kind of the same
it would
thing.
be hilarious for you guys to eviscerate it. I thought that would be
Yeah, let's
great.
do it. I'm totally down. I'm totally down.
Gabe's like, is he talking about me?
Okay.
I think it would be hilarious. And if
Yeah.
it was like a late night recording and we had had like a couple drinks, you know?
Yeah, we have to.
Oh,
we have to
I'm
do
super
it like
down.
that.
I'm
Yeah.
super down to read
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I'm totally
Yeah.
all in for it.
Yeah,
I'm ready when
that'd be
you
a ton
are.
of fun. Okay, so we are going to go into spoilers. If you have not read Empire of the Damned, now is your spoiler warning in 3, 2, 1. You've been warned. Okay, so spoilery general thoughts. Things that we weren't able to talk about in the spoiler-free section. Do you have any general thoughts that are...
The amount of intense sexual content in this book is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing.
There's so
I thought
much.
the first one, I was like, okay, you know, because I have not read smut ever. I've never like.
Oh, see, I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't think it was that bad.
No, I know it was. I was like that because, dude. Okay, so get this. I was, you know, a lot of times like I go to sleep and I'll put my Audible on a 30-minute timer, like right when I'm ready for bed, and then I can, you know, put it back to that.
Yeah.
And so I put it on 30-minute timer and I fell asleep and I woke up to the most visceral sex scene of the entire book just in my ear, and I was like, oh my god, dude. I was like, wait, I gotta I gotta listen to that tomorrow. But
You're gonna go back.
yeah. Yeah. But it was like it happens like 6 times, I feel like, where it's like just most here was my thought. He grew as an author in his smut writing. Okay?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Big time. Yeah, I was just blown away. I was like, wow, it almost made me uncomfortable. I was like, this is...
Okay, well,
especially
like,
if you read... real quick, especially if you read Nevernight, those books had so many sex scenes that were awful. They were written so bad.
I've never read those.
And
but
Jay Kristoff says that between Nevernight and Empire of the Vampire, his wife gave him a huge stack of erotica to read, and he just learned how to write good sex scenes.
Yeah,
that way.
I was in the car the other day, and one of the I'm always just listening. I was with Leah, and we were driving to the store, and one of them came on, and I was like, okay, you like smut, listen to this and tell me how it is, right? And so goes through the whole scene. She's just loving it, eating it up, and I'm like a little uncomfortable. I'm like, oh my god, wow, oh wow. And I was like, how was it? She's like, exactly what I love. It's perfect. I was like, all right,
that's great.
My husband's made me. He'll be like, "What are you reading?" I'm like, "You know what I'm reading."
yeah,
He'll be like,
yeah.
He'll be like, "No, read me like the sentence you're
You're like,
currently
no,
reading."
you don't
I'll
want
read
me to
it.
do that.
He's like, He's like, this is what you're sitting next to me reading? And I'm like,
yeah.
You didn't know? Sorry, I thought you were aware. My bad.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, oh, no, I think it was light, if anything.
Yeah. I'm sure, like, on like a true, like...
One, I feel like it stepped up.
Totally. I can imagine on, like, a true, like, smut fantasy book how much more intense that probably is, so...
Listen, if anybody watching this really loves, like, true, like, smut or whatever, Katie Robert has a series called Dark Olympus, and there are, 6, 7 books out now at this point. She puts out 2 a year. She's a machine.
Wow.
Read them, okay? If you guys like dark smut, read Dark Olympus.
What's it called? Let me just text it to my...
It's called Dark Olympus. It's by Katie Robert, Katee Robert, and it's just basically like it's like a Greek mythology retelling where all the main characters in it are based off of, like, there's Apollo and Zeus and Demeter and, like, all of that, but each book follows a different person. Oh my god, they are so good if you're into that. But while that didn't bother me in the book, what bothered me was when they kept talking at the end of the book about how everyone had moon's blood smeared across their face.
Oh, yeah.
that bothered me. That made me be like, okay, can we stop mentioning this? You've said it like 5 times now, and I don't want to hear you say it anymore.
Yeah, that was a little, it's like, oh, okay.
Okay, I was like,
I didn't feel like we needed to know that, but...
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. So let's talk about, there's a lot of, going straight from sex scenes and Moon's Blood to talking about his relationship with Phoebe. I loved how that kind of, like, played out in this book. I really loved Phoebe as a character, and when she first showed up, I was like, oh, whoa, the cat is back. And then it turned out that the cat is like a woman.
The cat is a person.
Yeah, that was a cool reveal. And
I didn't see their... I guess, like, with how broken Gabriel was, all through book 1, basically, I didn't see there being any sort of love interest storyline for him. It just wasn't something that I saw coming, so that alone really caught me by surprise.
Yeah, same here, ditto. I totally thought that he was just gonna be, kind of like, not like stuck on his wife or whatever, but like his wife died, and I thought that was gonna be like the end of love for
stuck
him.
on his wife, I guess that's fair, right? Like,
Yeah, totally. Like, and like I wouldn't have held that against him in any way.
Not.
I just thought that like. I just thought that was gonna be it for him, and so I liked when he finally got to the point. I forget who said it. It might have even been.
Was it the old woman who's like rolling the flowers when you can? Something like
and
that what you're thinking of?
Well, no, it was somebody that like knew him and said that Astrid would want you to.
I think it was the old woman.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Forced to go after her. Yeah, and she said also you have to take those moments. Grab the bull by the balls when you can. Your life has had so many obstacles. If you have a spare moment where you can find a brief moment of happiness,
I loved that development so much, and like right from the beginning they had a really great banter, and I really enjoyed the banter. And then there was the scene where they're at the tavern and they're like dancing together, and I was like, I love this so much.
And then he ruined it.
And then he ruined it. Yeah. And but I liked that it wasn't this thing where like he ruined it and then for the rest of the book they're kind of at odds. Like just a couple scenes away, they were able to come back together and him like explain where that was coming from, and her tell him like, it's okay to be happy and stuff. And I liked that was resolved rather quickly, and it wasn't this whole thing that we had to like kind of be annoyed by for the whole book.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big surprise.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
She was a woman.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then the relationship between him and Dior, this was really cool. Just like the father-daughter kind of
probably
relationship.
My favorite of this whole book is him and Dior.
Yeah, it was
Certainly
super
like
cool.
buddy duo, you know, like in like a comedy type of way. Like,
but not only that, like I know we'll talk about this later, but like towards the end, you know, like it changes so much, and I just love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very like Last of Us, like Joel and Ellie kind of.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I loved it so much, and I loved that, like, I don't know, I love that, like, even when he was angry with her, it's because he has her he has the best intentions for her life. Like, he wants to see her be safe and succeed, and it's not that he doesn't trust her to do what she needs to do, but he's like, now is not the time. Like when they're on the bridge and he's showing her like the emperor piece, you keep that in your castle and you don't fuck with it until the end, because eventually the emperor is going to come out and win the day, but you just have to stay back for now. And Dior just isn't getting it. She thinks that he's trying to like hold her back and all this stuff, and he's like, no, I just love you and want to like keep you safe, but I also want to use you in the best way that we can in this situation. And so I love that whole scene because you're seeing the two sides, and like her being kind of this angsty young person and being like, you just want to hold me back, or like you can't protect me forever, and then his side of like, no, I'm not trying to protect you forever, I'm trying to utilize you in the best way, and I'm trying to like, yes, keep you safe. And so yeah, I loved that whole dynamic, and it was kind of a bummer that
they spent so much of the book apart.
Yeah, for like the second half of the book, they were like completely apart.
Yeah, it made me really sad, dude. I had a couple of moments where I'm like, Gabriel, this is the chance. You can come in right now. Doesn't show up.
It made sense, like for the telling of the story, like for it to come on and there to be it. But I was like, it was just like they really were just bonding, and now you're ripping them apart. But I get it for the story.
Yeah, for the story, I get it. Yeah,
yeah. And I also liked how, like, you know, going back to kind of the first book where, you know, you're reading about Gabriel being like pig-headed and thinking he knows everything when he knows nothing, and now here he is as an old man, like having to deal with essentially a younger version of himself who also happens to be like the Grail, so she's even more important to the world, and like he's gonna keep her alive. So, you know, I really liked that, like looking at it that way, where like, you know, I have a 6-year-old, okay? He is the love of my life, but he is the biggest pain in my ass, okay? Like, I joke that I'm going gray early because of him. Like, every time I'm like, you just gave me another gray hair. And I feel like that's how Gabriel and Dior, he was like getting a taste of his own medicine, you know? Like, this is what you did.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's kind of a whole nother level to it where it's not just this father-daughter relationship, like him wanting to keep her safe because of that, but there's also like, you are extremely important to the entirety of the world and everything. So yeah, let's see.
I wish we learned though, like what the actual, like, did we, and I missed it, did it go over my head what the actual cause of Day's death was?
So I don't know. I've been really confused about Day's death.
It literally explains it in the end of the book.
But timeline-wise, I thought that wouldn't have lined up, because didn't Day's death only happen when like Gabriel was like a teenager?
Yeah. So Day's death isn't the beginning of the vampires. Sorry, guys, we were having some technical issues, so I don't know exactly what we were talking about a second ago, but... Oh, wait, hang on. No, I remember what we were talking about. We were talking about Day's death and the start of the vampires. So at the end of the book, we see the vampires, how they came about, but Day's death didn't happen for hundreds of years later.
Yeah, right? So
yeah.
I wasn't okay. So it was supposed to be. They set it up in a way that was this big reveal, and I'm like,
but
okay,
it was still the Redeemer's son cursed them. That's what Day's death is. It's a curse from the Redeemer's son.
That's how vampires were created.
Well, aren't vampires and Day's death they're connected? Right?
They're not the same thing. No,
they have to be.
No, Day's death is the thing that made everything like an eternal night.
Yeah,
when they
for the vampires.
Yeah, but that's not when the vampires were created.
Like night. They don't like sunlight. No,
I know, but vampires were created like hundreds of years before that, though.
So they were showing in that basement at the end how vampires had originally been created, which was when the Redeemer, that whole on the wheel that they're always talking about, that his blood is then what made vampires created. Okay. But that was hundreds of years before Day's death, because the sun went away. So how
So why did the sun go away when there were no vampires? Yes. Okay, that's fair.
Well, no, why did the sun go away hundreds of years after vampires had been created?
Oh, hundreds of years. Okay. All right. That's fair. I still think I have to think that they're connected. I think they got to be.
No, I do, but I thought they were telling us initially when I was reading it, like, oh, this is going to be like what caused Day's death.
Yeah.
And am I correct in after reading it being like we did not get how Day's death happened?
No, we don't know. We don't know how Day's death happened.
Yeah,
we just know
the whole thing. Over my head. The whole thing of the story was to figure out how to get rid of Day's death. So I guess you're right. I mean, in the end, they talked about how the vampires were made, and not, I guess, Day's death. But I'm like, well, Day's death, like, does that not just benefit a vampire 100%? Right?
Absolutely.
Of course it does. Yeah.
So there's got to be something connected there. Is I guess what I'm trying to say. It's got to be something. Yes. Got to be something.
Yeah. Just in the way that like vampires created it at some point. At some point, vampires were like, we found a way to blot out the sun forever, and so we're gonna do that because then we can take over the world, essentially.
So I really want to talk about Celine.
Okay.
I really want to talk about her if we're ready for that.
Yeah, of course.
I want to talk about because sometimes I'm good at catching stuff, but I would say the majority of the time, like a lot of times I read a reveal and I'm like, oh my God, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
I saw I didn't see Wulfric being Gabe's dad, but I did see that Celine killed him. Like from the beginning, I was like, oh, she killed him. Like he's the reason she's dead.
I didn't.
Did you guys?
I didn't at all.
Do we meet Wulfric before she tells him about his dad?
I don't think we meet Wulfric, yeah.
No, we only get that one flashback of Celine saying the first time she met him ever. But she talks about him because when she first finds Gabe, she's like, well, my master Wulfric, like, we need to get Dior to Master Genoa, or what his name was, because my master Wulfric died before he could tell me how we can end Day's death with her blood. And in my head, when we found out how she like fed off of other vampires, I was like, oh, she killed her master. I was like, she is in no way mentioned, like why, how, why, what he died. I was like, she definitely killed him, but I did not see him being Gabriel's dad. That one got me.
Yeah, that whole flashback sequence, or like her just like telling her story was so crazy, because we learn we see like the romance between him and Gabe's mom. Like she calls him in when Gabe is sick and he helps, and we kind of learn, it's alluded to, that he is a vampire who doesn't necessarily want to hurt humans, or like he's not as brutal as the other vampires.
It's not alluded to. Do you remember
that?
Do you remember that scene in there? Well, remember the scene where I don't know if he gets upset, but he grabs Celine by the wrist or something. Yeah, and then he immediately snaps out of it and starts crying. He's like, "That's not what I am. Yeah. I'm not a monster.
Right.
And I'm so sorry.
That's true. Yeah,
Mademoiselle. I'm so sorry."
Well, and the Asani are supposed to only feed off of their own kind. Yeah. They're not supposed to really get involved with humans. Period. Yeah. Basically. So, yeah, that was a really interesting scene, and I would have loved a little bit more.
Totally.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I hope we do get some more information, because it's like, okay.
How did he meet, Gabe's mom? How did that even like come to be? How did they?
Yeah, that could probably be a short story in and of itself,
A little novella.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take it. I'll take it.
I'll take it, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Yeah, there's got to be more to it, because it's like, how did Selene meet him, or like go and find him? Like, how did she even know how to find him? And then like he trained her, and then what? And
well, she did say she found him because during that time where she saw him with the mom, he made some very passing comment, and she says later, based off of that comment he made, she knew where she could find him. Like, so we weren't given specific details, but she did say, like, and after I was made, I remembered how he had told me about this one place that gave me the clue to go there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that whole thing is so interesting, because, yeah, the question does come up, like, how does she have, if she wasn't born from him, how does she have this magic that allows her to manipulate blood? But if she ate him and gained his abilities, that would make sense.
That's how she has the power of the ancient as a fledgling.
What's the name?
Yeah.
It starts with an L, like kind of her line, or her, brand.
Well, she thought was a voice.
Laethi, yeah, that's it. Those are ones that are known for, like you said, eating other vampires and taking their power, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's what the Asani do.
Asani.
Okay. Asani. So you know how there's like Voss, Divok.
Yeah. Oh, so it was like the fifth line, or the
That's the fifth line is the Asani, and that's why everyone always calls them cannibals, and they should have been killed off and extinct and blah 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 blah, because to the vampires they were like the vampire's vampire.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so like they're Asani, which to me doesn't seem to. I'm still a little confused on how everything works, because I guess we're talking it through. That's how she got the blood power, through him. But if she was already being trained by him, wouldn't she have already had the blood power?
No, because she doesn't have that like innate in her. Like she needs.
And so that's how she got it. She didn't get it till she ate him.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
because each line is born with a different power.
Yes.
And so
I knew that, and that the Asani were the ones that were the extinct ones, or they thought. But yeah. I saw that coming. I just didn't see that Wulfric was going to be Gabriel's father. I didn't see that.
Right. It's that whole section was so good, and it really made me wonder, like, did he like want to meet his dad, or like did he want to kill his dad, or what? I don't know.
Both.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to meet him. And I mean, at the same time, like, he did know that, like, his father knew of him this whole time, and he never came to see him, never sought him out. So I think every child secretly hopes that their parent will have an interest in them.
Right.
And that's what the whole thing is. And now he'll never get that closure.
Right.
Oh no, we lost Gabe again.
What did you guys think about the whole thing? I mean, let's just talk about like the ending. Like, let's talk about everything that was revealed at the end there, where it seems like Dior is killed, and then the very last line of the book is, and then she opened up her eyes, and there's this whole thing where, like, it becomes apparent at the end of the book that Gabriel and Selene are working together somehow. Like they've had this all planned out or whatever, and he's like punching at her mask and like breaks it open. I think he did that on purpose. Yeah. And he even, what about that one part, oh my god, where he calls the boy in, or he like has the boy stay, and then he's like, Joaquin, and that's the kid that was in
the whole time. His name is Dario.
Right. Yeah. And it's actually Joaquin from like earlier in the story. I thought that was crazy. And he's like, doesn't he say like be ready or something? And then they say like for the Grail. And it's like, wait, what? And then it switches to Selene's point of view, and she's like, actually, like we told Jean-Francois that like we didn't watch the funeral or whatever, and like technically we didn't. We were like down in the crypt where the mother of Mayron was or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was a weird part too, because Dior went into the tomb earlier and like came out like pale as a ghost, like, oh my god, that was crazy in there. And it's like, wait, well, what was that?
I don't think Dior never came out of that crypt though, right? She died in the crypt.
No, earlier when she was with all the girls, she was with like Rain and like a couple of the other people.
Okay.
They like went in there to look at and see what's inside it.
Gotcha.
And then she came out and she was like, what was that? And it's like, what was that? I would love for you to tell us. Yeah. And then Selene goes down there and like opens the door, and it's like a baby, like a little vampire baby that like comes out and is like scratching at her face and stuff. It's like, what the fuck is going on? And then she like subdues it, and then she looks into the crypt and sees Dior, and literally the last sentence of the book is, and then she opened her eyes.
Yeah. Okay, I have a theory.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so you know how I didn't listen to the book, so my pronunciations of everyone's names are a little different.
That's okay.
Selene, okay. And I read it as Selene. But do you know Selene can be like the little red moths?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the white moth that is always tapping on the globe throughout the whole goddamn book in present day with Gabriel is Dior.
Oh, whoa. Shit. I didn't realize there was a moth in present day.
Yes, because every time he's in the present day telling it, at one point in this book, he grabs it in his palm and then he lets it go too. But in every scene, the white moth is brought up as tapping against the globe.
This is something I totally missed.
Dude, the whole way through the book, I was like, are they going to reveal it? Is this it? Like, I was convinced. Dude. But then when it ended with her opening her eyes, I'm like, well, say she's a vampire now. And maybe she can do what freaking Selene does. But because she's the Grail, she would be white and pure instead of red moth like Selene.
Spencer, I'm with you right now, dude, because like I said, I just literally read the last 6 hours of the book today, laying down in bed with my eyes shut, focused. And I don't remember the white moth.
I'm gonna have to do a reread.
It can't be different though, right? From the there's no way that it's different.
No.
Yeah.
When you go back, you're gonna realize it, to you it clearly was such a non like. It was just like
okay. All right. Me, yeah. You're like, I noticed that shit.
I was like, why is this moth brought up so many goddamn times?
Okay.
Why do we keep talking about the moth?
See, now I know I need to do a reread, dude. There's just no question. When
Selene was with Dior, they came up with the tap once for yes, two for no.
Yeah.
So I thought it was Dior the whole time tapping a message to Gabe.
Wow.
Oh my god.
Wow. And so then at the end, I was like, oh, she's a vampire. I was like, this actually might be possible.
And it would make sense, right? Because Selene has like that moth ability because she's descended of the line where they're they have like control over like animals or whatever.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Well, she has like the blood thing, but like her original vampire line is the control over animals,
like muddled
right?
At this point, right? Like she's taken in so many different powers at the point that we see her, right?
Right. Yeah. So it's a little.
She's got sanguimancy. She's got the animal.
Selene was made by Lauer, however you say her name, whose father was Fabian, so they're Voss.
Oh, Voss. Okay.
But we've seen, well, I guess we haven't seen, but the way that Selene talks about herself is like, it's always we. It always makes me think like she's got hundreds of souls within her that she is controlling, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, there's got to be more than just one line in there somewhere, right? Like, there's got to be different powers and different abilities that she's taken.
Right.
Yeah.
It just makes me wonder, why aren't all vampires drinking each other?
That's true, exactly.
Right, yeah.
It's like the ultimate power. It's like the most powerful way to be a vampire is what she's doing.
I think there's definitely downsides though, because if you're swallowing like their blood and you're killing them, their spirit like lives in your head, and Selene is like a little bit crazy.
Well, that's
like,
it.
She's
exactly.
a little bit.
That's why
like,
that's why she says we.
That's why she can handle it.
Yeah. That's why she can handle it.
It's a normal day for her.
Yeah. But I'm saying that's probably why a lot of other vampires aren't doing it, because they're like.
Or if they're not able though. But if you think the vampires that we see, if there's a chance at power, they'll take it. Like if they could eat another vampire and even be crazy, they would take it. It's.
Well, I think any vampire can do it.
No,
right?
but I'm talking about like absorb the bloodlines of the vampire they ate. You can eat anybody. You can take their blood, and the blood is powerful, but can you absorb everything, all the essence of what they were?
Yeah, that's what I have questions on.
Yeah.
Also, how about the big like reveal with the vials and what was in them?
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming at all.
Oh yeah, well, we'll get to that in just a second. But the reason I wanted to bring all that up real quick was I was trying to figure out like why would Dior be able to do the moth thing, and I guess my question is she a vampire because she was drinking Lily's blood? Is that what made her? Was that the only vampire blood she was drinking was from Lily?
No, I don't. I didn't absorb it that way. Yeah.
Because how else is she a vampire?
Is it ever fully explained to us how vampires are actually made, though? What you have to do?
Well, Lily,
yeah, it's like Anne Rice rules. You have to die with vampire blood in you.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I never took it that way, but I could be wrong, so it's all good.
Took what way?
So Lily is the one that, she's the wolf mother.
No, that was Kiara. Lily was the one that was like
Heartless.
Dior's master.
Okay, gotcha. So when you said that Selene drank her blood, when was that in the story? Like, when did you think she became a vampire from Lily's blood?
Well, Dior.
They stopped when everything was found out that she wasn't actually a thrall. Remember?
Yeah. Well, wait, hang on. So remember, Dior was becoming enthralled to Lily because,
but then
they were like sleeping
enthralled together.
Yeah. Yeah, but like Lily didn't know that.
Yes.
And so she's drinking Lily's blood that whole time. And so I'm wondering if when Dior dies, she still has Lily's blood inside her, which is how she became a vampire.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Selene. I was like, dude, Selene's been a vampire. She's been a vampire. Okay, yes. Dior,
no, I'm talking about Dior.
I'm with you.
Yeah, so I think... So Lily's line is the one that can control animals, those Dovok or whatever, right? Is that Lily's power?
That's the name of
because she's got the two. She's got the two dogs.
What's the big bad guy that fights Aaron and his?
Cain?
No, it's like starts with an N. It's like.
Nikita.
Nikita, yeah, he's considered. Yeah. What you just said, a Dramite or whatever you said.
Dovok,
right? But does he control? I don't know if I've ever seen him control any animals.
So one, Divok and Voss, one is the one with the unbreakable skin, and then one is the one with speed.
Divok is the unbreakable skin, because they talk about that all the time. Yeah.
I think Chastain is the one who is the animals, and that's the people that Gabe is talking to.
Gotcha.
Okay, so then how does Dior have the ability to do the moth thing, is what I would ask. Like, how does Dior... Because I think you're right. I think that's probably Dior, that little moth that's flying around him. But I would ask, how is she able to do that?
I don't know.
It's all theories, man. We're gonna have to wait and find out.
I know. Dude, this book set it up so much to where I'm like, I need the next one now. And I didn't necessarily feel that with the first book. Like, the first time I read through Empire the Vampire, I was like, that was great. I'm ready for the second book whenever it comes out, but I don't need it right now. When I finished this book, I was like, I need the next book right fucking now. Right now. Oh my god. So, I love that theory though. I love that that's
Do you?
Dior.
Yeah, I
like
need to go back. I need to see the white moth. I need to see it.
Yeah.
Go back
crazy that I
and
missed
listen, and you will realize it's basically in every present
wow.
day scene.
Okay,
That's so cool.
All right, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, this
I
whole
think
book.
it's even in the first book as well. The moth is there.
I wouldn't doubt it.
pretty
Yeah,
positive.
yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah,
doubt it.
because it's all the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really catch on to this in the first book, but pretty much all the way through the second book, I at least had some sort of little tiny thought where I was like, is this all part of Gabe's plan? Like, did he plan on getting caught and like staying in this place? Like, is that like all part of his big master plan? And then as we got to the end, it was so rewarding to be like, oh my god, there is some sort of plan. We don't know what it is. We don't know. It's probably to kill the Empress, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Because he says something about Margot. I have it in my notes.
Not only that, but Celine, like, her last words were like, tell your... she's talking to the rat. Remember when she picks up the rat?
Yeah.
And she says, tell Margot, we'll see her soon.
I'm coming
right.
for her.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking
And I was
about.
like, yes, dude.
Yeah.
I loved how in the beginning you got to see Chastain go talk to her for a second, and he talked about how he had painted all those portraits of her, and he goes, in truth, like, she wasn't as beautiful as she's portrayed, but she hasn't seen her reflection in so long that she has no idea. Damn.
Yep.
That, dude, I thought about that.
You don't remember what you look
For real.
like.
Yeah. I thought about that so much, because if you're a vampire... And if you're in like a position of power and you ask somebody to paint you, of course they're gonna paint you in like a flattering light. So you'll never really know how you look. I was thinking about that. I'm like, man, that is mind-boggling.
Like, over the centuries, how are you gonna remember? You're never seeing your reflection.
Yep.
Right.
Right. I liked that. I thought that was an interesting tidbit.
Oh man.
And I thought it was really interesting how when Chastain goes to put on clothes after he's like been in with his like thralls or whatever, and he makes a comment about like, oh, it's a little more threadbare than I'd like to wear, but what can you expect when like no more cotton or silk is being made? And I thought it was very interesting, and I wanted more on like, how is the current world being affected by all of these like production issues, essentially things that cannot be grown anymore.
Well, like even Gabe says there's really only like potatoes and onions and mushrooms.
Yeah, from what like we're made to understand, like the world is kind of stopping everywhere. Like, this is a cataclysm, Like, it's
like, what is endgame for the vampires of this? Like, there's only a finite amount of humans if you just keep slaughtering them in the manner that you currently are.
Right. Can we talk about, speaking of slaughtering humans, one of the things that I really want to talk about is when Dior gets captured and she goes into the vampire like citadel. This whole like the first couple scenes where she sees the brutality of these vampires really stuck with me. There's a scene where she's in the crowd with Baptiste, and she's like sitting there with him, and they're watching on the back of this cart. The vampires have all these children, and they're picking them up and throwing them into the crowd to be eaten by the other vampires. It's just like throwing a kid out there, throwing a kid out there, throwing a kid out there, and just getting shredded. I'm like, holy crap! Like, oh my god, this is insane! Holy shit!
Merciless, man.
Like that part.
I hadn't thought of the logistics of having to keep thrall swords, like, or not thrall swords, because that's the humans that they get their blood, but the wretched, I think, is what they call them.
You have to keep them fed. Like, they have to eat blood, otherwise they will either go insane to the point where they kill anybody or die.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting. I was like, wow, I hadn't realized, like, you got to feed your army even though they're dead.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. It's like feeding an army.
Right.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely
crazy.
Dude, it was so brutal, and I just had like this image in my head of like Dior and Baptiste kind of like sitting away from it, and just this crowd of vampires just going crazy. Like, oh man, it painted such a wild image in my head. And then she goes inside to the more the more like etiquette, like the more like civilized vampires inside,
no,
sophisticated,
the VIP room.
Yeah. And there's like a human thrall that like she says she walked in the door and like a human thrall like curtsied, and then there's a boy who's just strung up by his feet and she just like cuts his throat and fills up like 2 glasses with his blood and then takes it over to a table. And I'm just like, holy shit.
Wow.
Like, oh my God. Oh, like, you really, you know, you think vampires and you think, okay, like a vampire sneaking up on a human in the woods and like biting into their neck and killing them. And you don't really think about, like, what would a vampire citadel look like? There'd be horrific things happening inside this place. And, just, oh my God.
That like peek behind the curtain. It reminded me of this series I read a while back. It's by like a German author. It's like the dwarves. But they did a second series where it was from the view of the dark elves that were mentioned in it. And these elves are dark, like paint and blood, you know, like the darkest, cruelest shit you could think of. And that is what I thought of when I was reading about these vampires. It was like, oh, see, like this is the real depravity like I want to read about. Like because this seems real.
Right.
They're not.
Yeah.
This is not a love
if
story.
You think, think about the science behind the vampires and what's going on. This is what they need pretty much to do, I guess, in a sense. Mind you, they're skewed and distraught. But like, if you think about it, that is the most efficient way. Like, get my glass of blood. That's all they're doing. You know.
Yeah.
They don't care about anybody else. I just need my glass. Or 2 glasses of blood. Let me take one for you and I'll drink this one.
Yeah, because they see humans as
they're cattle. They're just
cattle. Yeah, and it's even mentioned by, I think it's Lily that says to Dior, like this isn't as crazy as you think it is. It's just the first time that you haven't been the apex predator on the planet. Like it's the first time that like. That you are the prey, like you are the cows.
To think about, dude. Because there's even a point, it might be in the first book, where I think Celine or somebody's talking about death, and they're like, humans are the only ones that could die peacefully in their sleep. Every other animal is attacked or taken or dies a painful death because that's how the world works. You know, they are prey. They're meant to be eaten. So I was like, dude, that is just really hardcore. Like really hardcore.
It's so bonkers, and it reminds me a lot of a book. I really need to read the sequel to this because I liked it a lot. It's called The Hunt by Andrew Fukuda, and it is it's about a world in which vampires have taken over, kind of like this, but like more in a not like a real way, but like vampires are. They're like running businesses and they are a part of like everyday economy, but they rule the world. Like there are no, like any humans that are left are put into like cattle farms basically. Like they are,
and
there's not.
Vampires have won. They are the ultimate.
Yeah, they have completely won. Like there are barely any humans left. And matter of fact, humans are so rare that once a year they kind of send them out into like this Hunger Games thing, and they have to like fend for themselves while the vampire nobility like hunts them down for sport.
What do they do though without human blood? Like if humans are so rare, how does the vampire population survive?
I forget. They have ways. I think they can drink animal blood.
Okay.
And
well, that's I guess goes along with the story too. It's not as good, but it'll work.
Right. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they can drink animal blood, and there was synthetic blood. Like they found a way to like take whatever the vampires need from blood and like synthesize
it. Out of it.
Yeah. But by far, like the best is to have a live human.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And so in this story, there's one human who is outside of like the whole cattle thing. And he's trying to pretend that he is a vampire, and so he gets to see a lot of these things that happen behind closed doors in this like vampire society, because he's able to somehow pretend that he's a vampire or like convince them that he's one. And so, anyways, it reminds me a lot of what we saw here, where it was just like the most brutal stuff happening, but the vampires are like, yeah, it's just normal day, normal life.
Yeah,
like, this is just how it is.
Tuesday.
Yeah, this is a Tuesday. Let's power through the last couple things. I think I really only had a couple other ones I wanted to talk about.
Sweet.
I definitely want to talk about the blood.
The what?
And blood in that reveal, what it was in the golden vials.
Yes,
because I did not see it coming, and it had to be spelled out for me in total black and white letters.
It did for me too. I agree.
Yeah.
What's the name of their
the blood of the animal people?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The golden blood or the golden.
What are they called again?
Yeah, what's the name of them, Spencer? Can you
the
remember?
moon.
There was like a.
I don't remember.
Oh man. I don't think I'll.
The night shifters or
something. They're the people that could shapeshift, really.
Yeah.
You know, like the Earth Mother or whatever.
Oh, Duskwalkers.
That's it.
Yeah.
I loved when he was in their like village or whatever, and talking about all of the things he was seeing. I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Not only that, but when him and Phoebe, were like doing the deed, and she's like, bite me, take me, blah blah blah, and he like just gets uber stupid powerful from her blood.
Yeah.
Like, this crazy.
I didn't get it.
Slams somebody across the room, and he's like, what the heck just happened? And then later he finds out like that is like, it's like
that's how like they're
cocaine for vampires,
Yeah.
I thought the reveal was going to be that the whole time Gabriel was giving his like confession, it was going to turn out he was actually like a full-fledged vampire.
Oh.
That's what that's why I kept thinking when they were doing the bite me. I was like, oh, so he's going to turn out to be a vampire.
Yeah, making like her a thrall or something.
And
yeah.
So I misread that.
Well, I did too. It was kind of weird that she asked to be bit, like, because she did. She's like, take me, bite me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, okay, I guess that could make you all of somebody, All right, sure.
Well, because Astrid was kind of the same way. I think there's kind of a euphoria that comes over someone when they're being fed on.
And we see that in later too, like it's definitely euphoric.
Yeah. I feel like that's like kind of like a blanket statement of like when anyone is bitten by a vampire, it's almost always like some
it's got to be pleasurable.
Whenever someone's being bit or biting someone else or
something good is happening out of it. Okay,
yeah,
right? There's good feelings to be had.
I was surprised by that. I didn't see that coming.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely surprising. I thought that was a cool way because he took the file off the vampire he killed, and I was like, what's the significance of this? Like, what is this little thing that he pulled off? And it was just never addressed. And I was like, are we gonna find out later or what? And so then when he brings the file into the Duskwalkers, or Phoebe does after he's getting his ass kicked, she's like, they've been drinking our blood. That was a great moment. I loved that.
That was great. That was really great because I was like, how are they going to get out of this situation? As he's like fighting with all of the Dusk Dancers, I was like, this is not what they wanted. This is not what they came for. I was like, how are they going to get out of this? And like that reveal was how they got out of it, but I did not see it coming.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Just trying to race through a couple topics real quick. What was going on with Aaron? Because I thought for the longest time that he had been turned into a vampire, and that's why the silver on his back was hurting him.
Yeah, he was.
What is it?
No, because at the end he was able to come out of it. Like he was able to be
That was just like a love conquest.
Yeah, he was turned into a vampire, full vampire.
And he even says to Nikita, like when he disobeys him, like he's like I love you, but he still holds a part of my heart.
He says, you have my heart, but not all of it. And that's when he throws whatever that thing is away.
Yeah, but then so they kill Nikita though, and it breaks that thraldom. And so then at the end you see him and Baptiste like together.
Yeah,
he's a vampire.
Yeah,
he's a straight up vampire.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why they couldn't give Dior's blood to him because it would have killed him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like to get him out of the thrall, they couldn't just give him her blood because it would have killed him.
Yeah. And I didn't really understand that either until the scene where he's like being tortured by his own tattoos. And like it's
Right.
like he is being burned alive by his own faith because now he is the thing that he swore to kill, you know?
Dude, so what are they? So what is he gonna do about his tattoos then?
They flayed him off. They cut off all of them.
No.
Yeah, but
they
regrows.
flayed him off every day, but it kept regrowing. And so then what they figured out to do was they tattooed over the tattoos and put the ash in it. Something. I forget what it was, so that it was like the antithesis of
that makes sense.
The original.
Yeah, I missed that part.
That's
but that
what
makes
it was.
sense.
They kept flaying him, and it was growing back every day, and it became like too tedious for them to like flay him. So they tattooed over it with like the ashes of like vampires or something.
Oh shit!
Because it like negated it. You know,
that's pretty fucking dark. Let me just say.
Yeah, dude.
When they first went, like, oh, he was screaming every day because of his tattoos burning him.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's the way I felt too. It's like literally being burned from the like his skin in every single second of every single day.
So then they go, our solution was to flay him.
Yeah.
Oh, but guess what? He's a vampire, so it's gonna come back every day. And now they have to do it every day. I was like, oh.
Ah, man, he went through some shit. That guy for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so before we go, there's a couple. I have one quote.
I have
that
one moment that I want to talk about too.
Okay,
when we get there.
I'll tell this quote and then you do your moment. When he's punching, his apprentice or whatever that showed up, the other Silver Saint.
Lachlan.
Yeah, Lachlan.
I hated this so much because I felt like it undid so much of the first book where he's referred to as the last Silver Saint. He's supposed to be the very last one. And then all of a sudden there's like more Silver Saints. This is the one complaint I had about the book.
Present day, he's the last.
Yeah, I thought it was always present day.
Present day.
That's what it's always referred to. Because like Jean would, last Silver Saint. What do you think about this or whatever?
As he's telling his story, he's the
very last one.
But in the story, he wasn't.
Okay,
a couple others.
You're right. Okay, because I was pissed about that throughout the whole book. Because I was like, he's supposed to be the last one, and then there's more? What the heck?
Yeah.
But that makes sense. Yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense. But he's fighting him. And the quote is, he like punched him or whatever, and the quote is, sending him sailing out into the night as I fucked his face with my fist.
Yes! I remember that too, yeah. That whole scene was awesome. Like when he shot I'm forgetting her name. Basically shot what's her name?
Dior?
Phoebe. Thank you, Phoebe. Shot Phoebe in the chest with a silver shot, you know? And then I think Gabe was talking about like the monster that hides inside sometimes is like that's when it let loose. And he kind of like freaked out.
That's great.
Oh, yes. When he was finally like, there was nothing, there were no barriers.
Yeah, no barriers left to keep me from going.
I'm an animal, essentially.
Yeah. One more quote real quick from Ash. I love Gabe and I talked in the last episode how she's always like singing these random like nursery rhymes and stuff, and he's like fighting and she's singing, there once was a lad from old Lyles who jugged 5 black Ignis vials. He blew his poor bollocks all over the hillocks and his jack all the way to the Isles.
And then he says you can't rhyme like bollocks with bollocks.
Yes.
Why do I remember that?
Totally.
Oh,
Yep.
I thought that was so funny.
That was great because I had to go back and I was like, oh, they did rhyme.
Yeah. What's your favorite moment, Gabe?
All right, so I wouldn't say it's a favorite moment. I'll be real fast, but it's probably the one moment in this book that made me actually like cry and weep. Was when Dior, Rain were down, running from Lily down in the crypt, right? And they managed to hit Lily a couple times, messes up her face, still there. I can't remember if it's like after she hurts Rain really bad or not, but Gabe shows up and she slices his face open, just screaming like, "Get away from me!" He's like, "No, no, it's me."
He's like, "I'm here,
I'm here. It's me." And then she like cries in his arms. I was just bawling, dude. I was like, "Oh my god, that just melts my heart."
Dude, it is such a he must have drawn inspiration from The Last of Us because this is such a Last of Us moment where like he's got her, like she freaks out and hit him. He's like, it's me.
Yeah.
And then he like pulls her in.
Yeah.
He pulls her in. He says, "I'm here, love. I'm here."
Yeah.
And I was just like,
me.
"Oh my god!"
And then not
I'm
only
like
that,
crying.
but she calls him Papa. She's like, "Okay, Papa."
Yes.
And I was like, dude, I just melted. I was just like
Oh
laying in
my
bed, started
God.
crying. I'm like, oh my god.
Yes, dude. And then Rain wakes up. She
Yes.
like her blood just like barely worked on
Yes.
Rain. And then the narrator Gabe says, "It would heal. All would be well now," he said as he kneeled down in that crypt, his famille beside him.
Yes.
And I'm like, just like this big family, this big happy vampire family. And then Dior calling him Papa. Oh my god, that broke my heart. And then Connor comes out of nowhere. All of a sudden, Phoebe's like, "Oh, my ex-husband is still alive."
I saw that. I knew the whole time. I go, "That's Phoebe's husband." That was another major.
Oh shit! You picked up on that.
Nice.
The whole time. I don't know what it was that caught me at the time, but I knew. I go, "Oh, they use Dusk Dancer blood." I go, "Everyone's wondering where they're getting the blood from to get all the strength." I was like, "Oh, it's
point.
And
Good
his husband
point.
happened to die."
Oh,
I knew.
That's such a good point. Holy
And like I said,
crap.
I don't normally catch like many things, but I caught that one. I was like, "Oh, that's Phoebe's husband."
Bravo.
And then when they find out at the end, I was like, "I saw this."
Bravo. That's a really good connection.
And I wish I had not, but like
Yeah.
I knew as soon as Dior put her shoe in him and her blood got in him, I go, "He's gonna come back and save the day." I go, "That's Phoebe's fucking husband."
Awesome.
Damn.
Well
that's
done.
a good catch.
That's impressive.
I was very like pat myself on the back.
Yeah.
I don't know how I caught it, but I fucking knew.
Nice.
And I was like, now Gabriel's not even going to get his happy ending. Of course.
Yeah.
Right. And then like literally 2 minutes later, he dies from
Yeah.
Lily.
Not only that,
Yeah.
Not only that, but we see, Dior die also brutally, and Gabriel's world is smashed apart. It's like it was happy for like maybe 3 minutes, and then I just immediately was destroyed.
Yeah. Right.
God,
yeah.
dang it.
I know, but dude, Connor doesn't come back, right? He's dead.
No.
Okay,
Wait,
so that's fine.
Why does he? But he gets back up though, because they say
no, he gets back up, and then Phoebe realizes who he is. They have their moment, and then
Lily kills him.
Lily like wakes out of the water after they thought she blew up in ashes. Okay.
Yeah, that's when she like snaps Dior's neck and stuff too. So the other moment, I think the last moment that I really wanted to talk about is where we get this perspective shift over to Dior, and we see her in the castle and doing all her stuff, and just living like miserably and trying to survive without Gabriel. And she goes, there's a certain point where her perspective is about to shift over to Gabriel's story, and it's right before her perspective ends, and Dior walks out onto this precipice and sees this army coming in, and there's a quote, she's quoting Gabriel in her head. "I know not where this road will lead us, girl, but I'll walk it with you to whatever fate awaits. And if God himself would tear us asunder, if all the endless legions stood in my path, I will find my way back from the shores of the abyss to fight at your side." And Gabriel comes over the fucking hill, and it's like, let's
whatever fate waits is such a phenomenal quote. Seriously.
Dude. Oh my god. It is so amazing. I love the cavalry coming over the hill. I love the savior at the last possible second. I love all of those tropes, and that moment was just that was the best part of the book for me, was just this moment where like he's coming back to get his
doing what he said he would. He's getting his girl. Yeah.
Right.
Really quick, one last thing. Can I see what one of the worst moments was?
Yes.
When they realize that Dior's blood like has unthralled the thralls, and they make them all stab each other, and like they all do it because they think like
when
they're just being tested, but like no, he knew that they weren't.
Yes. That's when Nikita knew the whole time, and he's like, "Oh man,
right." Oh, that was
That was
brutal.
That was brutal. Yeah, brutal. That was brutal.
Yeah.
The whole time I was like, dude, he knows.
Yeah.
I was like, the jig is up.
Yeah,
like,
the jig is up.
Somehow he knows. Like, somehow he's onto it. And it turns out that stupid girl Isla was like,
yes.
yeah, I'm enthralled and I still want to be here. Like, fuck you.
Well, she's like, I still love you. You know, to Nikita, she's like still enthralled just with the fact of him loving her. Yeah.
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 How dumb can you be? Yeah. He does not love you.
No
you are
way.
A worm. He doesn't love anything.
Never did. Yeah. He's incapable.
Yeah.
It's not part of his makeup.
Yeah.
Infuriating. I loved when Kiara just like right into the wall with her head and
yeah. I also, before we go, I just want to say I love the back and forth with Gabriel and Jean-Francois. And like when they're in the present day and Gabriel's talking to him near the end, he says, I forget what the context was, but he says, I'd rather fall fighting queued up like a bunch of sailors outside your mother's house when the fleet is in town. And Jean says, a jest about dear mama's promiscuity. I was just about thinking we were overdue. It had been a minute. It had been a minute since the last one. And he says, that's just what she said. Oh, that got me. And then I loved Gabriel describing the battlements, like all of these like miles, or I don't know if it's miles, but at least like hundreds of feet of like ditches and walls before you even get to the citadel.
Yeah.
And he's talking about like, he's like, it's not just like flat ground before you get to the castle. Like they've made it so that in every direction there's something to like stumble over, and there's something to like, you know, catch up like your siege weapons and stuff. And I'd never really thought about it that way. And so it was really cool to see, like, it's not just like a pike wall that's outside this castle. Like there's like a mile of just awful shit. And then my last favorite thing is Baptiste dipping his maul in pitch and setting it on fire.
I loved that.
Yep. And like hitting the guy with a flaming sledgehammer. Like that is so fucking awesome. Like I love that so much. Yeah. All right, well, we are at the end of our time here. Does anybody have any final thoughts before we go? Any last minute things?
I would say probably that this the ending of this book made me more excited for the next one than any other series I've read recently.
Yes.
Oh shit! In general, blanket statement.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
If
there's gonna be a next one, I mean, I hope there is.
That's like,
yeah, there is.
No,
we read
it's
a
big.
lot, you know.
Let me preface this also, Sam, because I don't read a whole lot of new stuff. I'm always rereading or kind of reading like one, you know, like a you know, like a 2-book series or something. So mind you, I haven't read that many new ones with, I guess, the next book in the process, but
like as they come out.
Yeah, as they come out. But man, I'm stoked for the next book. Like I'm very much excited.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same. I think that I just made a tweet today, posting like a picture of Empire of the Damned, and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna decide between this and Will of the Many for my favorite book of the year. Like, it is such a hard decision. Like, because I loved both of them in like very similar ways.
Different. Oh, see, I feel like it's in like different ways. Where like Empire of the Damned scratched my like vampire itch because I love that dark, like
that really brutal kind of
conscience type of book. And the Will of the Many was a very like, it was on par for me with like Naomi Novik's Deadly Education, where they invented a whole science.
Yeah, that was what was really cool about that book.
Logical way that I could understand.
Right.
And to me, like that alone is like, oh my god, how does your brain?
Yeah,
like,
how do you even keep that in there?
How does your brain work that way? How do you? I am just so impressed.
Yeah.
It was an amazing story. So, you know what? Love them both for different reasons. They could both be your favorite of the year
for different reasons. Amen.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely like very different books. I guess what I was thinking was like in terms of quality and like how well written they were. Like I just don't know. Like
I couldn't even.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do some deep soul searching, dude, to figure that out.
I know.
I'll be excited next Christmas to see what you decide.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it will come down to like getting months away from both of them,
Totally.
and kind of like getting some like longer term perspective.
Yep.
But it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get out of here. We will do some planning for a Will of the Many episode in the future. We'll definitely do that. Wasn't there one other one? Oh, Fourth Wing. We wanted to do Fourth Wing.
Yes.
So we will
either Fourth Wing or read like A Court of Thorns and Roses. Gabe,
I'll read it. I'll totally read it. Spencer, you should read it too. We should read it together.
I'd rather do Fourth Wing.
I don't care about
it's
if you'd rather
more
or
like
just read it with me.
Into the action where A Court of Thorns and Roses takes like a whole book to get there, kind of. You know what I mean? So like, let's read Fourth Wing. We'll have
Fourth
way
Wing
more.
like
Fourth Wing also
contained
smut,
story?
Though? Is it like a? Are they on the? Oh, okay. See, I've never heard of Fourth Wing, so I didn't know that.
It's basically like a girl who has to go to like military dragon boot camp, but she's like the frail daughter of like the woman who runs everything.
Gotcha.
If you can get where the trope will go,
I can get where the trope will go.
I don't get where the trope will go because I don't know.
I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say
it.
Yeah,
no, you can imagine.
Okay.
Think about that a little bit more. A frail girl with a mom that's the
frail
boss
girl
in a military camp. Come on.
Yeah, goes to a military camp where she's expected to die right away. What do you think is
Great. Well, I am looking forward to it. That'll be super fun. But yeah, thank you, Sam, so much for joining us. I know you probably stayed a little bit later than you were hoping for, but I really appreciate you
always good to see
hanging out and
we
giving
have
us
to
some
do it
time.
Again soon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we are going to wrap it up there, guys. Thank you all for watching and hanging out with us. As always, you can reach out to us on Twitter and Discord, and if you'd like to support us, you can do so on Patreon. We mentioned the tiers at the beginning of the episode, so I won't repeat those, but that definitely helps us a lot, especially paying for services like StreamYard. This service is so expensive, and I don't know why they charge so much for it, but so Patreon helps, and also just like subscribing on YouTube, that does wonders for us with the algorithm and everything. So thank you to everybody who's doing that. I don't know exactly what's coming up. I think that we will probably have another Harry Potter episode in the near future. I think we need to schedule that and get that planned out. I think the very next episode after this is going to be our ghost story episode, a Dresden Files episode, and then right after that will be a Creator's Corner with Bryce from Shelf Centered, I believe his channel is called. So yeah, it's good to have the Creator's Corner back. That'll be fun. But anyways, guys, again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, fuck
my
face. You know what?
It's okay.
Now that I was saying it, I'm good.